Okay, so today we're going to be solving by factoring. The first part we're going to do by hand. The second part you're going to need your graphing calculator. Pause the video if you need to write this down, but we're going to move on to problem number 1. We've done factoring the last couple of days, so you should know that you're always going to look for a GCF. Is there a GCF? No, not in this problem. All right, is it a trinomial? Since it's a trinomial, if a is 1, we know that we're just going to come up with two binomials. The first terms are x and x. And the last terms have to multiply to 3, but they have to add to positive 4. So if you come up with things that multiply to 3, you either have positive 3 and positive 1 or negative 3 and negative 1. Well, the only thing that's going to add to positive 4 is x plus 3 and x plus 1. So that's step 1, factor. Step 2, use the zero product property. Something times something equals 0. Well, that something has to equal 0, or this something has to equal 0, or both. So we're going to set x plus 3 equal to 0, x plus 1 equal to 0, and figure out what would be the value of x. All you're doing is solving for x, and you guys should know how to solve equations. So your answers are negative 3 and negative 1. For number 2, we need to first move the 4x to the other side. So you have x squared minus 4x minus 12 equals 0. Now you're left with a problem just like we did before. So no GCF, a is 1, so therefore I know it's going to be x and x, and I look at what multiplies to negative 12. All right, but it has to add to my middle term, so it has to add to negative 4. So if I look at what adds to negative 4, it's x plus 2, x minus 6. And this is equal 0. All right, so now I'm going to look at how can I get x plus 2 to equal 0 and x minus 6 to equal 0. So I know that I'm going to subtract 2. I get x equals negative 2. Add 6, and I get x equals 6. All right, this one already says equals 0, so I can go right to my factoring. There's no GCF. A is equal to 1, so x and x go at the front. What multiplies to negative 15? Okay, I want to add to positive 2, so not that or that. The one that adds to positive 2 is negative 3 plus 5. And don't forget this is your equal 0. So at this point I can say x minus 3 equals 0, x plus 5 equals 0, and I can solve my quick equations. The hardest part is going to be the factoring. Once you can do factoring, then these are just really quick problems. All right, this one, just like problem number 2, I need to move all my terms to the left side and then look at how can I factor it. All right, is there a GCF? Well, 3, 7, and 2 do not have a common factor, so that's a no. However, a is not 1, which means that it's not just going to be x and x, it's going to be 3x and x. So now I'm going to do the guess and check method. The guess and check method is where you come up with all the factors of 2, so 2 and 1, negative 2 and negative 1. And I'm going to use a pencil just in case I get it wrong the first time. So I'm going to just try 2 and 1. Check outer and inner. And if I add those, I get 5x. Well, that's not 7, so that's not correct. If my numbers are wrong, switch around the numbers. So I try 1 and 2. This time that's going to add to, let's see, 3 times 2 is 6x. Inner times inner is 1x, and if I add those, there's my 7x. Okay, so now I found the correct factors. And then now I can set each factor equal to 0. All right, if I solve, I'm going to subtract 1. This time I have to divide by 3. So I have x equals negative 1/3. And then over here I have x equals negative 2. All right, so flip to the other side. 2 more problems like this, and then we're going to move on to the calculator kind. All right, so it says equals 0. I need to look for a GCF. Well, in this case, I actually do have a GCF. I can divide both of these by 4 and an x. So my GCF is 4x, which leaves x minus 6 left over. All right, there's your factoring part. So we're still doing this. Factor as much as possible. All right, now I need to set each factor equal to 0. Well, this 4x, that's one of my factors. So that equals 0, or the x minus 6 equals 0. I'm going to divide by 4, and I get x equals 0. Add 6, and I get x equals 6. All right, this one, I need to make it say equals 0, so I have to subtract 36 first. Then I'm going to look for a GCF. Nope. But now in this case, I only have a binomial. So I look for the difference of perfect squares. This one was a binomial too, but x minus 6, x squared is not a perfect square, neither is 6. Okay, but this one is a perfect square, so what multiplies to x squared? Well, x and x. What's the square root of 36 is 6. And so one of them is plus 6, and one of them is minus 6. Now that I've done my factoring, I do the zero product property. So x plus 6 equals 0, x minus 6 equals 0. So I have x equals negative 6, and x equals positive 6. All right, for the rest of this, you're going to need your graphing calculator. So we're going to look at the steps. We need to make sure that the equation already says 0 at the end. So this one does. So you are going to go to your y equals, and we're going to type in x squared minus 3x, minus 3x minus 8. And we're going to hit graph. Okay, so you should have a parabola. Anytime that you have an x squared, your graph should be a parabola. So make sure that that's the right shape. All right, I'm going to find these zeros. Essentially what I found in all these factoring problems, these were where my graph crosses the x-axis. If you want to go back and check, like for example, we'll come back to that. 4x squared minus 24x. If you look at your graph, it crosses at 0 and 6. That's what those solutions are. So the only difference in these bottom problems is that they're not going to turn out to be nice integer locations. They're going to be decimal locations, which is why we're going to use the calculator to help us find those. All right, so I've got my graph. Right? I'm just going to draw a sketch of this so you have an idea of what we're looking for. All right, I need to know where are these locations. So you're going to hit second. All right, so first off, we just have it equal to 0 already. We entered our equation and we graphed it. You're going to hit second and trace, and we want to calculate our 0. So that's choice number 2. So I need to say left bound and right bound for each of these zeros. So basically, you're saying, okay, within this, I need to set up a boundary. I need to tell the calculator to look between these two numbers. So I'll show you a couple different ways of doing it. So I'm going to move to the left, hit enter. Now it asks right bound. So I need to go to the right and hit enter. Notice that there's these arrows. So it's saying find in between these two arrows, find where that crosses. Okay, and my guess, you just hit enter. So there's my first solution. My solution, I'm going to round to 2 decimal places, is negative 1.70. That's this one. I'm going to repeat the exact same process for the one on the right side. So I'm going to hit second, trace, calculate my 0. All right, now this time I need to tell the calculator, give me a wall on each side of this x-intercept. So I'm going to move my cursor a little bit over here till I see it. All right, so I see it now, so I'm going to hit enter. So see this little arrow? And then I'm going to move a little bit past it. I went past the line. And so now I'm going in between these two arrows. Where's the x-axis intersecting the parabola? So hit enter, and there's your other solution, 4.70. This number should always be 0. When you have something like 2 times 10 to the negative 12, that's basically 0. So these are my 2 solutions. All right, we're going to keep going. Number 8, we have to move everything to the left side first. So I've got negative 5x squared plus 7x plus 3 equals 0. All right, so I'm going to go to y equals, type in this equation, negative 5x squared plus 7x plus 3. And I'm going to hit graph. Okay, so this time my parabola opens down. And I'm just going to draw a sketch so you see what we're doing. It kind of looks like this. You're finding where are these two locations? Where are the two places where your graph crosses the x-axis? Well, you need to set up a little boundary. So hit second trace, and we want to calculate the 0. So I'm going to move a little to the left of that point. See, there's my arrow there. Move a little to the right. So if you look at your two arrows, that x-intercept is in between there. So one solution is negative 0.34, and the other one, I'm going to hit second trace and my 0, and I'm going to hit here and here. So now I told it, okay, look in between those two lines and tell me where is my x-intercept. So my other solution is 1.74. All right, I'm going to show you a little bit of a different way to do the next two. So we've got, it already says equals 0, so go to y equals, type in your equation. All right, I'm going to hit graph, and I'm just going to draw a sketch, and I would suggest that you do that when you're doing your in-class problems tomorrow. So draw a sketch. If you count the tick marks, I can tell that this is somewhere in between negative 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this point is somewhere between negative 3 and 4. If you hit second trace and 0, so it asks you for a left bound. Well, instead of actually moving left and right, why don't we just put in, well, I know it's in between negative 4 and negative 3. So now I've told the calculator, without having to use the arrows, that I need to go between negative 3 and 4. Okay, hit enter. And then you've got negative 3.54. This one, I can count 1, 2, 3, is between positive 3 and positive 4. So instead of doing that, I'm just going to type in 3 and 4 and get my number, and it's 3.54. Alright, we're going to do the last one using the Inspire in case any of you guys have that. So first we need to have everything on one side. Add 13. So we get negative x squared plus x plus 13 equals 0. Alright, so this is the graph you're going to type in. Alright, so I'm going to use, we've got negative x squared plus x plus 13. Alright, so I've got my equation here, and if I draw a sketch, I've got a parabola that opens down, and I know I need to find these points. Alright, so on here you're going to go to menu and trace. No, sorry. Menu and analyze the graph. So you're going to analyze the graph, and I'm calculating the 0. So the only thing is that's different is you can scroll, and on the Inspire it shows like a little shaded area, which is kind of nice to see. So this tells me that my 0 is at negative 3.14. Okay, and then I'm going to do it again. So menu, analyze your graph, calculate my 0, and I'm just going to put in, see it shows you the line, so I'm going to hit enter and scroll over here, and it highlights, this is the little region. So it's kind of like what we were drawing up here. We want the line around where this 0 is at, and your calculator just shows it. So that other solution is at 4.14.